On June 11, 1964, in the suburb of Volkhoven in Cologne, West Germany, a man equipped with homemade weapons, including a flamethrower, attacked a Catholic elementary school. 8 students and 2 teachers were killed, and several more were injured. The perpetrator, Walter Seifert, would eventually die in hospital later that day after poisoning himself. Seifert was born in Cologne on June 19, 1921. During his teenage years, he began working as an apprentice at a metal factory before being drafted into World War II at the age of 20. He served in the Luftwaffe branch of the German military that specialized in aerial warfare. He was held captive as a prisoner of war for several months and was eventually promoted to sergeant. Once the war ended, he briefly worked at a car factory before becoming a police officer. In 1946, he was deemed unfit for service after being diagnosed with tuberculosis, leading to his dismissal from the police force. Seifert, believing he was being treated unfairly by authorities, spent many years writing letters lobbying for better treatment. He also believed the government was cheating him out of his war pension. In 1954, Seifert was examined by medical professionals who made note of his odd mental characteristics. They observed him to be mentally devious with a fanatical behavior, having a scattered train of thought, and exhibiting paranoia particularly towards doctors and health officials. They determined he had some form of paranoid schizophrenia, but since he didn't show any aggressive or violent tendencies, he wasn't hospitalized. The next year, Seifert married a woman named Renata Ursula. Their marriage ended in tragedy when, during premature birth, Ursula suffered an embolism and passed away in 1961. Seifert was reportedly grief-stricken by the loss and believed that her doctors were to blame for her death. He wrote a 120-page letter to several medical agencies titled Matricide: Individual Fate and Analysis of a System, where he equates doctors to mass murderers and calls society a criminal system. Part of his writing reads, quote, "Thus begins the vigilante justice, the terror of the medical society and the pluralistic chaos of criminality. But terror can only be extirpated with counter-terror, and whoever denies me the protection of the law forces the cudgel into my hand." Unquote. He began constructing his own weapons about 2 months before his attack. He made a flamethrower from a modified insecticide sprayer, a spear made from a scraper attached to a broomstick, and a mace from a pump bracket. On June 11th, just after 9 a.m., Seifert arrived at the school grounds on his bike, armed himself with his weapons, and entered through the eastern gate. 3 crossing guards mistook him for a mechanic and asked what he was doing. Seifert ignored them and blocked the gate with a wooden wedge. He walked towards a girls' physical education class taught by his former teacher, Anna Langor. Sensing that something wasn't right, she instructed her students to leave, but Seifert grabbed his flamethrower and sprayed fire onto Langor and the children. He then proceeded to the nearby classrooms of Miss Wilmes and Miss Sweden and smashed their windows with his mace. He aimed his flamethrower into the classrooms and lit the children inside ablaze. Seifert continued to attack the victims fleeing from the burning barracks until his flamethrower ran out of fuel. He then swallowed an insecticide called E605, also known as parathion, in an attempt to kill himself. Since the substance was diluted, however, he didn't die immediately. In a nearby classroom, 62-year-old teacher Gertrude Bohlenroth stepped outside of her classroom to see what the commotion was. Seifert approached her and stabbed her in the chest with his spear. She died from her injuries 4 hours later while in the hospital. Seifert then proceeded to the southwest corner of the schoolyard, where the classrooms of Mrs. Kuntz and Mrs. Kerr resided. Both teachers tried to keep their doors closed, but Seifert was able to open Ursula Kerr's door, which caused her to lose her balance and fall down the flight of stairs in front of the building. As she was lying on the ground, Seifert stabbed her in each of her thighs. She attempted to stand back up before he stabbed her in the back, killing her. It was after this that Seifert finally fled the schoolyard, ending the massacre. Still wielding his spear, Seifert fended off dozens of residents that were chasing him towards a railway embankment. Once police arrived, Seifert attempted to stab one of the officers before being shot in the leg. He was then arrested and taken to the University Hospital in Lindenthal, where he was questioned by a detective. According to the Windsor Star, when asked why he targeted a school instead of the doctors he claimed were trying to kill him, he said that it was pure coincidence and that he would tell him the full story the next day. Later that same evening, however, Seifert died as a result of the poison he ingested earlier. The rampage on the school lasted roughly 15 minutes and left 2 teachers dead. 2 other teachers and 28 students were badly injured. They were taken to several hospitals, with some suffering burns to 90% of their bodies and left nearly unrecognizable. In the coming weeks, 8 of the students would die as a result of their injuries, ranging in ages from 9 to 12. Other victims remained hospitalized for weeks or even months afterwards. One 13-year-old girl had to stay in the hospital for an entire year. The incident immediately sparked grief and outrage, as people questioned whether prior intervention from health professionals would have prevented Seifert from carrying out his attack. A few weeks after the massacre, the vice president of Germany's Child Protection Association made accusations towards those in the medical industry for not recognizing dangerous behavior in some of their mental patients. This came in the wake of separate incidents in Berlin and Ludwigshafen, where 3 children were killed by individuals with mental disabilities. These accusations led to a response by the Rhineland Regional Council, which said that the legal situation made it impossible for doctors to have Seifert sent to a psychiatric hospital. News agencies continued to report on the event and the status of the victims for months after it took place. A rumor was spread by the French tabloid Le Parisien that Seifert was chanting that he was Hitler II during his attack. In reality, this quote originated from a different man that was disturbing traffic in downtown Cologne 2 days before the massacre. An outpouring of support from the victims came immediately after the attack. Over 2,000 people attended a requiem for those that were killed. The small church was so full of mourners that many of them had to stand outside in the rain and listen to the mass through loudspeakers. A total of 1.4 million German marks, or about $830,000 were donated to the victims and their families, and the city of Cologne agreed to cover all of the victims' treatment costs. Both of the teachers that died during the attack were memorialized in the names of 2 schools in Cologne, the Ursula Kerr School and the Gertrude Bohlenroth School. Anna Langor, one of the survivors of the massacre, was given several medals and awards for her bravery, including the Medal of Merit by the Mayor of Cologne and the Pro Ecclesiae et Pontificae by Pope Paul VI. She passed away in 1990 at the age of 93. In 2002, an elementary school in a nearby suburb was renamed the Anna Langor School in her honor.